Welcome everybody. I'm here today with Georgina and Gabrielle, and we're about to discuss what we call the need me pattern. Now, to set this up, I want to share a story about a client that I work with many years ago from Perth. This particular client owned a high-end hair salon, and he was a superstar in the salon world. What happens in the salon world, if you are an amazing stylist and you get a reputation, you'll tend to be picked up by the big companies, the likes of Wella or any other big hairdressing supply companies, and you'll be toted around the country and you'll be turned into a rock star educator. So he had a massive profile. He also cut the hair of celebrities that helped build that profile, and all the people in Perth from a certain socio-economic group would go to this guy's salon and get their hair styled by him, and he would have a couple of other stylists, but he was the central focus for this salon, and he'd been very busy for many years. He'd done well financially, but he was burnt out, and he came to me and he said, "Perry, I want my business to run without me having to be there constantly. I just want a better lifestyle." Now, that's a very entrepreneurial goal. I like that kind of goal because I think your business should give you a good lifestyle. Now, to do that, he had to shift his business from what we call a personality-based business. And a personality-based business is one that revolves around the status or credence or personality of the star, who is usually the business owner. You've got to evolve from that to a business that's not personality based, where the business itself and the staff that work for that business carry the brand. So people are just as attracted to the business and to the staff as they would be to the owner. Okay, so it's a transition phase. And just before we get into this, so typically when you go through that transition phase, what you've got to do is then start to position and edify, in this case, the other hairstylists that work for him. Turn them into stars. Turn the brand itself into stars. So as an example, Gab and Georgina, that would be like me making sure that both of you get lots of airtime and get the ability to communicate, and I would support you in being seen as stars to the marketplace so that people really understand that you are absolute experts at what you do as coaches. If I'm doing that, I'm supporting you, I'm supporting a brand outside of me. Okay, so really important when you shift from personality-based business to an entrepreneurial-based business that can run without the star, that you understand that transition. So he was a smart man, and he started to move out of the business, and he would do things like send emails to his database talking about how one of his hairstylists has just won the fashion awards weeks, or another one had been working with such and such a stylist. So he's doing a really good job edifying these girls and building their brand. After about 2 or 3 weeks, we started to see some pretty interesting behaviours. And if one of the staff made a mistake, he would be in at the business and he would turn this small mistake into a big thing. Okay? And in turning it into a big thing, he was undermining the girls. You could see he wanted an excuse, or he wanted any reason to sort of, go, well, maybe I shouldn't be putting you into this position. And I was looking at that going, well, this is pretty fascinating. He's kind of undermining these good girls that we knew had the ability to carry the good name of the brand that he had built around his own personality. So there was no question there. But he was looking for a reason to make them wrong. He even took clients over from some of these stylists. Now, of course, we're working with the I need to be needed pattern, but what do you think was going on for this particular gentleman, Georgina?
Well, I think there was a couple of things, Perry. First of all, he was so used to being in the star role that there were parts of him, parts of his ego that really needed the validation and the edification that he got from being the star. So because we want to move our business into a brand base rather than a particular individual or a star based, it doesn't stop the needs that we already have within ourselves based on our patterns from childhood, and the need for validation, of course, would be really strong. And it really served his business well until he wanted to make a change in how he was going to be, what his role in the business was. So for him, there was a lot of things going on. He really did want to have that freedom, but his ego and parts of him just were feeling really uncomfortable. And that's probably why he was, he spoke as if there was probably a perfectionist part in there, that any little thing was an excuse, because he knew that he could do it best. And if he had to come in and show them that they weren't up to scratch, it would also give him a chance to air some of his negative feelings about not being part of what was going on, as well as coming in and then being the star again. So quite a few different things going on in that situation, but all totally, in the shadow or under his conscious awareness. So he was actually sabotaging his business without even knowing it. That blind spot.
Yeah, really important. Georgina's right. He didn't know it. He couldn't even see what he was doing. He couldn't see it. He couldn't understand. His rational mind said, look, these girls are making a mistake. They're ruining my brand. I'm going to come back in there and save the day. Okay? And Georgina's exactly right. He couldn't really see what was going on. On the unconscious level, he was feeling, we'll go into this in a second, a bit in quite depth, but he was sort of feeling like unimportant. He wasn't getting his normal ego hits, which we'll talk about in a second, as an entrepreneur who ran the business but wasn't the star of the business. And Georgina, you said something really interesting, because it is his perfectionist trait that it made him a superstar anyway in the first place. So you're right. He would come and they're not perfect. They're ruining my brand. I better get back in here. On the unconscious level, when you get back in here, the part of him would go, Yahoo, look how important I am now. People are loving me again. Okay, and the key word's addiction. Because if you've just spent, and I mean, I've talked to you about this before, you use that word, Georgina. It's like if you've just spent your entire life being up on stage and having audiences and you've got your name in fashion magazines and everyone's loving you, then you're that's a very addictive experience. And so to sit back now and be an entrepreneur and get this business system, this salon to run without him, which is a very smart thing to do, meant that he would have to face not feeling important based on his old way of feeling important, which was feeling needed and loved and adulated and all those types of things. And I think that's a really important lesson, because if you're listening or watching this and you run a personality style business, you will confront these kind of things when you have to transition your business away from you to a team, as an example, or to a bigger business where you're building the brand. You will face this, because there's another element to this too, because as we talk, I'm thinking about as coaches or people that work with people. One of the things that the three of us get when we work with clients is we get a very good feeling. We feel useful. You can see the girls nodding. We feel useful. We know that we're taking core skills that we have, and in helping another client, it helps us feel so relevant and so important to that person. And when I say important, I mean what we're giving them is important, so that there's a real sense of value. So if you're a person who's been working on the tools, meaning that you serve clients all the time and you're transitioning to running the business and working on the business, when you shift and you're running the business and you're not having that people interaction or that sense of I'm really serving this person right now, you will tend to confront this need to be needed pattern. Gab, what's your viewpoint?
Yeah, I was thinking of a client that I've been working with recently that also has this pattern. And I was thinking about the need to be important. And the client that I work with really had this pattern as well. And like you've been saying about being important, it really came down to the fact that her whole life, her self-worth had been wrapped up in being the star in her business and needing to be the star. Because her self-worth was so tightly wrapped up in this role, it also undermined her staff's success. So because she needed to be a star and she was sabotaging and finding ways to be in the business, she would be making about 20 phone calls to her staff every day and finding ways to be in the business. But because of that, it also made the staff turn around and go, well, hold on, what's the problem with me? So she was actually, we had to have a big talk about, you actually, not only are you sabotaging, profits and you're being in the business, you're not doing what you want, you're actually sabotaging the success of your staff because you're making them think, well, what's wrong with me? The other thing is that she wanted, her goal, obviously, like we've been talking about, like most entrepreneurs, is that lifestyle and being with family and that kind of thing. And that unimportant feeling is because these people that we're talking about, once they move into the family role or into lifestyle, they get a real sense of low self-worth. And that's because they've never learnt before to find other ways to value themselves other than being a star. So our role in this work, and, for somebody that has this pattern, they need to find ways to make themselves feel loved and valued, and give themselves a sense of high self-worth when they're doing the things that they do want in life.
Yeah. I think also when you're talking, like it just comes to mind, Georgina will be all over this one, you can see that even in that person that you're talking about, I think it's really interesting, by the way, because so oftentimes being in an entrepreneurial space, you can be very isolated, or it's you're independent. Now there's certain personality styles that's just not going to work for. So I'm even thinking about my wife at this point. I'm thinking about Georgina as an example, where, if Georgina's running a business as an example and she's isolated, or my wife was running a business and she was isolated, it actually wouldn't work for them, because there's a high need for connection and interaction. And again, by the way, as we talk about this, there's no right or wrong, but I suppose what we're working with here is, look, understanding who you are. So, you can hear with what Gab's just talked about, this client is probably, trying to be the entrepreneur. And this other part that goes, but I want to be with people. I want to connect with people. Well, it is unconsciously bringing her back into the business to make these calls. So I've seen this pattern a lot with motivator types, Gab, where they undermine the entrepreneurial activities of the business because they want to be with the team, And again, as I say, no right or wrong, but you if you've got that and it is undermining your business, you might have to put into place in business that, look, I'm not always as being an entrepreneur. I'm being with my team because that what works best for you and makes you efficient. Georgina? Just in closing, viewpoints?
Yeah, in closing, one of the things that's really important to recognize is people will gravitate towards roles and businesses or tasks that they enjoy. So if you have been a star entrepreneur and you have not been doing systems and back end stuff and all of that, because that's not your specialty. It's not where your strengths are. It's not where you really want to spend your time. So when you start to move in a different way, that and you may need to be looking at getting other people on your team who can help you to run that side of your business so that you can still keep in connection and maybe in other ways. But just it's really important to recognize that when you're pulling yourself away from all the adulation and all the attention and then throwing yourself into something that you hate, you're going to feel even worse and even more low self-esteem and it's going to undermine and sabotage your business even further. So it's just really important to understand when you are making a transition, some of the pitfalls, some of the blind spots that can really catch you up.
I think that's really important what you've just said, Georgina, because again, it's just being honest about yourself and who you are. By the way, Gab only found out about her client Sabotage. I only found out about the client that I shared about Sabotage because they were making that transition from being the star or highly connector in the team to being more entrepreneur, where they're working on their business and stepping back from and letting the business itself breathe and be the brand. It's only in that transition where the business owners involved and us working with those business owners have learned, well, this is our pattern, and this pattern is undermining our ability to build this business. So now we know about this pattern. Maybe what we're better off doing, we know what we need to do with the business to separate ourselves from the business, but maybe we need to bring in some people onto the team that really are good at that and love that. And I might oversee that, but I'm going to go and do what I love. That might be a decision that you make that will allow you to get your entrepreneurial goals met, but at the same time honoring who you are. Thanks, everybody. That's the need to be needed pattern.